I always believed family was the safety net you fell into when the world cut your strings. But I was wrong. 2 days after losing my job, I found an eviction notice taped to my door for violations I never committed. I thought it was just bad luck until I saw the proof. My sister hadn't just offered me a shoulder to cry on. She had bribed my landlord $1,000 to make sure I had nowhere else to go. The cardboard box is the universal symbol of failure, but nobody tells you how heavy it is. It is not heavy because of the books or the stapler or the framed photograph of the dog I had when I was 12. It is heavy because it is full of the silence that follows a catastrophe. I carried mine out of the glass doors of the marketing tech firm where I had spent the last 2 years of my life. It was a Tuesday in Briar Glen, Pennsylvania, and the sky was the color of a wet sidewalk. The meeting had been short. My manager, a man named David, who had once bought me a cupcake for my birthday, refused to look me in the eye. He used words like restructuring and redundancy and fiscal alignment. He did not use the word fired. He did not use the word unemployment. He just slid a packet across the desk and told me I had an hour to clear my things. I sat in my car for 40 minutes before I turned the key. My hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from a sudden, violent realization of math. I had $1,200 in my checking account. My rent was $1,400. The severance was 2 weeks of pay, which would not arrive for another pay cycle. I am 33 years old. I am supposed to be solvent. I am supposed to have a rainy day fund, but the last year had been a series of small, expensive disasters, a broken transmission, a root canal, a rent hike, that had eaten my safety net until nothing was left but the mesh. I drove home to the apartment complex I had lived in for 3 years. It was a beige brick building called the Briarwood. It wasn't luxury, but it was safe, and it was mine. I walked up the 3 flights of stairs, unlocked my door, and put the box on the kitchen island. I stood there in the quiet of my apartment, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the world, and I felt the panic rising in my throat like bile. I needed a plan. I was a project manager. I managed things. I could manage this. The first step was damage control. I needed time. I went down to the leasing office the next morning. Gordon Pike, the property manager, was usually a gregarious man who spent too much time talking about his fantasy football league. He was a man of soft edges and easy laughs, the kind of landlord who would waive a late fee if you brought him a coffee. I walked in, practicing my smile. "Hi, Gordon?" I said. "Do you have a minute?" Gordon was sitting behind his desk, staring at his computer monitor. He didn't look up. He clicked his mouse, the sound loud in the small, carpeted room. "I am a little busy." "Claire," he said, "what do you need?" His voice was flat. It lacked the usual musicality of his boredom. I sat in the chair opposite him, clutching my purse. I have had a bit of a professional hiccup. I said, keeping my voice steady, "The company did some restructuring yesterday. I am going to be fine, absolutely fine, but I might be about a week late on the rent for the first of the month. I just wanted to give you a heads up and ask if we could waive the late fee just this once. I can pay you half on the 1st, and the rest on the 15th. Gordon finally looked at me. His eyes were blank, hard little marbles behind his wire-rimmed glasses. He looked at me as if I were a stranger, or worse, a liability. "We have a strict policy on partial payments." "Claire," he said. I blinked. "Since when?" "You let Mr. Henderson in 4B pay late 3 months in a row when he broke his hip." "Policy is policy," Gordon said. He looked back at his screen. "The management software has changed. I cannot override it. Rent is due on the 1st. Late fees apply on the 5th. Eviction proceedings start on the 10th if the balance is unpaid." He was reciting it. He was reading a script. "Gordon," I said, leaning forward, "I have been here 3 years. I have never missed a payment. I am just asking for 2 weeks. Can we put something in writing? Just an email agreement so I don't get hit with an automated notice?" "No," he said. He said it so quickly it sounded like a bark. "Nothing in writing. The lease stands as is." He stood up, signaling the end of the conversation. I felt a flush of heat crawl up my neck. This wasn't just bureaucratic annoyance. He was stonewalling me. I walked back to my apartment, feeling the ground unsteady under my feet. The apartment, usually my sanctuary, suddenly felt fragile, as if the walls were made of paper. My phone rang 2 hours later. It was my sister, Melissa. Melissa is 5 years older than me. She lives in Larkridge, the town where we grew up, 40 minutes away. Melissa does not have crises. Melissa has itineraries. She has a husband, Evan, who makes good money, and she has a house with a wraparound porch and a guest room that she calls the suite. I heard about the job. She said, I froze. I hadn't put it on social media. I hadn't told our mother. How? I asked. I saw a post on LinkedIn about layoffs at your company. She said, I put 2 and 2 together. Are you okay? I am fine. I lied. I am just figuring out the next move. Claire, she said, and her voice dropped into that register she uses when she is talking to a child or a golden retriever. Let's be realistic. You live paycheck to paycheck. You don't have savings. I have some savings. I said, defensive. You have debt. She countered, look, I talked to Mom. We are worried about you spiraling. You know how you get when you are stressed. You shut down. I am not shutting down, I said. I am looking for freelance work. Melissa sighed. It was a long, heavy exhale that traveled down the phone line and settled on my shoulders. I can help, she said. I can talk to someone about getting you a temporary position near Larkridge. But you need to be realistic about your living situation. You can't afford that apartment. I can afford it. I said, I just need a month. You need stability, Melissa said. Move back home. Just for a few months. You can take the suite. We can set up a plan. Get you back on your feet. I didn't want to go back to Larkridge. Larkridge was where I was the little sister who couldn't get it right. Larkridge was where Melissa inspected my outfits before I left the house and asked to see my bank statements to help me budget. I am not moving back. Melissa, I said, I appreciate the offer, but I am an adult. I will handle this. There are rules to being an adult. Claire, she said, her voice sharpening. Accountability is one of them. You can't just freeload off the world. If you come home, we can help you. But you have to be willing to be helped. You have to let us steer the ship for a bit because clearly, you are sailing in circles. I hung up. I shouldn't have. But I did. My hands were shaking again. 2 days passed. I applied to 30 jobs. I sold a designer purse on an app for $200. I ate pasta with butter. I told myself I was surviving. Then I came home from a walk to find the paper taped to my door. It wasn't a note. It was a formal document. Notice to quit. The font was thick and black. The tape was blue painter's tape, slashed across the top and bottom. I stood in the hallway, staring at it. My neighbor, Mrs. Gable, opened her door to retrieve a package, saw me, saw the note, and quickly looked away, closing her door with a soft click. Shame, hot and prickly, washed over me. I ripped the paper down and went inside. I sat at my kitchen table and read it. Reason for termination. Lease violations. Excessive noise complaints. Quiet hours violation. Unauthorized occupant residing in unit. Significant property damage. Flooring/walls. My mouth fell open. I lived alone. I didn't even have a cat. I spent my evenings reading or watching documentaries with headphones on. I owned a vacuum cleaner that I used religiously. I had never damaged anything more than a wine glass. This was a mistake. It had to be a clerical error. Gordon had mixed up my unit with someone else. I grabbed my coat and marched back down to the office. It was closed. A sign on the door said, "Back at 9 a.m." I didn't sleep that night. I paced my living room, looking for this alleged damage. There was a scuff on the baseboard near the sofa. Was that it? There was a small stain on the carpet from a coffee spill 3 years ago. Was that it? The next morning, I caught Mrs. Gable in the laundry room. She was a nice woman, retired, who usually asked me about the weather. "Mrs. Gable," I said, "did you ever hear noise from my apartment? Loud music? Anything?" She looked uncomfortable. She clutched her laundry basket to her chest. "No, dear," she said. "You are quiet as a mouse. Then why?" I trailed off. She took a step closer, lowering her voice. "There was a woman here the other day," she said, "while you were at work. Well, before you were home. She was knocking on doors." "Who?" I asked. "She said she was your family. Mrs. Gable said. She said she was your sister. She was asking if we had trouble with you. She asked if you had men over. She asked if you drank." "Melissa." My stomach dropped. Melissa had been here? She hadn't called. She hadn't texted. She had come to my building and interrogated my neighbors? "What did you tell her?" I asked. "I told her you were a lovely girl." "Mrs. Gable said, but she kept pushing. She asked if you had damaged the washing machines." It was very strange. "Claire, she made it sound like she was trying to help you by finding out how bad things were." I thanked her and walked away. My head spinning. Melissa was digging. She was trying to build a case that I was incompetent, that I was spiraling, just like she said on the phone. But why? To prove a point? To force me to come home? I went to the leasing office at 9 sharp. Gordon was there. He looked up when I entered, and for a second, he looked guilty. He looked like a kid caught with his hand in the jar. Then the mask slammed down. "Gordon, what is this?" I asked, slamming the notice on his desk. "It is a notice to quit," he said, not looking at the paper. "I know what it is. I am asking why. I live alone. I am quiet. I haven't damaged anything. These are lies." Gordon picked up his phone. He started scrolling through something, ignoring me. "We have received complaints." "Claire," he said, "and the maintenance team noted damage during the last inspection." "What inspection?" I asked. "Nobody has been in my apartment in 6 months. We have rights of entry for emergency maintenance," he said vaguely. "Look, Claire, you are in violation of the lease. We are exercising our right to terminate. You have 30 days to vacate. I am not vacating." I said, my voice rising, "I have a lease until August. You can't just make things up." Gordon stood up. He was a big man, and he used his size now, leaning over the desk. "If you make trouble." "Claire," he said, his voice low and ugly, "I will file for immediate eviction. That goes on your permanent record. You will never rent another apartment in this state, and I will keep your security deposit to cover the damages. All 1,500 of it." He was threatening me. This wasn't just policy. This was personal. But why? I had been a perfect tenant. I walked out, shaking. I felt trapped. I felt like the walls were closing in, and I didn't know who was pushing them. That evening, the humiliation became physical. I went out to get groceries. Just milk and bread and eggs. The staples of the anxious. When I came back, I pressed my key fob to the black plastic square at the main entrance. Usually, it beeped and the light turned green. This time, the light flashed red. I pressed it again. Red. I tried to wiggle it. Red. It was 6 o'clock in the evening. The wind was cutting through my coat. I stood there, holding a plastic bag of groceries, locked out of my own building. I looked through the glass doors into the warm, lit lobby. It looked like a fishbowl I wasn't allowed to swim in anymore. I felt tears prick my eyes. This was it. This was what it felt like to be discarded. It wasn't just the eviction notice, it was the erasure. My key didn't work. My job didn't exist. My word didn't matter. I waited 10 minutes, shivering, until a guy from the 3rd floor came out to walk his dog. He held the door for me, giving me a confused look. "Thanks," I whispered, keeping my head down. I ran up the stairs to my unit. My physical key still worked on the apartment door. Thank God. I locked it behind me and leaned against the wood, gasping for air. I threw my bag on the counter and opened my laptop. I needed to document this. I needed to send an email to Gordon about the key fob. I logged into the tenant portal. It was a clunky system, but it had a message center. I saw a notification in my inbox. Subject: Inspection scheduled. Date: January 21st. That was 3 days ago. I clicked it. Dear resident, maintenance will be entering your unit on January 22nd between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. for a routine check. I stared at the screen. I had been home on January 22nd. I had been home all day, applying for jobs. No one had come, no one had knocked, and I hadn't received this email on the 21st. I checked my Gmail, nothing. I checked my spam folder, nothing. I looked at the metadata of the message in the portal. It said, sent, January 21st, but the read receipt wasn't triggered until right now. They were backfilling the file. They were creating a paper trail for an inspection that never happened to justify the damage they hadn't found. My heart was hammering against my ribs. This was a conspiracy. It sounded paranoid even thinking it. But the pieces fit. The sudden coldness, the scripted answers, the fake email. But why? Gordon didn't care enough about me to ruin my life. He was lazy. This took effort. I sat on my couch, wrapping a blanket around myself. I felt small. I felt very, very young. I needed to hear a human voice. I picked up my phone to call my mom. But I hesitated. Melissa had already poisoned that well. Claire is spiraling. If I called crying about a conspiracy involving my landlord and a fake email, I would just be proving Melissa right. I put the phone down. A notification popped up on my laptop screen. It was from an old cloud account, the Kelly family share we had set up 5 years ago to share photos of a cousin's wedding. We never used it anymore. But my phone was still synced to back up audio files there. Sometimes. The transcription service on my phone glitched. If I missed a call and it went to voicemail. The transcription would sometimes auto-save to the cloud drive if the file was large enough. I saw a new file. audio_2026_01_24_1900. That was tonight. An hour ago. I hadn't received a voicemail an hour ago. I clicked the file. It wasn't a voicemail left for me. It was a recording of a call that had been inadvertently captured. Sometimes, if I was on a shared family plan, which I was, thanks to Melissa's insistence on bundling to save money, and the lines got crossed or a three-way call wasn't hung up properly. It would record the dead air, but this wasn't dead air. It was static. Then a voice, Melissa's voice. She sounded tinny, like she was on speakerphone in a car. "It is done," she said. A pause. "He will post the notice." She continued. "I sent the 1,000. Just make sure he sticks to the script. I don't want her talking to him." Another voice mumbled something. Male, low. It sounded like Evan, her husband. "She needs this." "Evan," Melissa said, her voice sharp. "She is drowning. I am just speeding up the inevitable. If she gets kicked out, she has to come home. Then we can fix her." I sat there, frozen. The audio file ended. I replayed it. I sent the 1,000. The words hung in the air of my silent, cold apartment. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't the economy or the restructuring or the universe punishing me for buying expensive coffee. It was Melissa. She had paid my landlord $1,000 to evict me. She had bought my homelessness. The hurt hit me first. A deep, agonizing ache in the center of my chest. My sister, my big sister. The one who taught me how to braid hair. The one who bought me my first legal drink. But then, the hurt began to curdle. It turned sour. Then hot. It turned into something I hadn't felt in a long time. I looked at the eviction notice on the table. I looked at the dark screen of my phone. She wanted me back in Larkridge. She wanted me in the guest room, under her roof, under her rules, grateful for her rescue. She wanted to break my legs so she could be the one to hand me the crutches. I stood up. I walked to the window and looked out at the parking lot. The wind was whipping the trees back and forth, but inside, I was suddenly very still. I wasn't going to Larkridge. I wasn't going anywhere. Denial is a physical reflex. It is the body's way of rejecting a poison before it has time to stop the heart. I sat in the dark of my living room, the glow of the laptop screen painting my face in a sickly blue light, and I played the audio file again and again. I needed there to be a mistake. I needed the voice to be someone else, or the words to mean something different. Maybe the 1,000 referred to a charity donation. Maybe he'll post the notice was about a bulletin board flyer for a lost cat. But then I heard it. I had missed it the first time, because my blood was rushing so loudly in my ears. But on the fourth listen, the static cleared just enough. Melissa's voice, sharp and impatient. "Make sure Gordon knows I'm not paying for the hauling. Gordon, my landlord's name." The coincidence dissolved. The denial evaporated, leaving behind a cold, hard pit in my stomach. My sister, the woman who had taught me how to tie my shoes, the woman who had held my hand at our father's funeral, was orchestrating the destruction of my life. She was paying a stranger to throw me out on the street. I closed the laptop. My hands were trembling, but not from fear anymore. They were trembling from a strange, vibrating surplus of adrenaline. I needed to know why. I needed to hear her say it. I picked up my phone. It was 9 p.m. Melissa would be in her sunroom, probably drinking a glass of Pinot Grigio, surrounded by the beige and cream decor of her perfect, controlled life. I dialed. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, sweetie," she said. Her voice was warm, dripping with that manufactured concern she had perfected over the last few years. "I was just thinking about you. How are you holding up?" The audacity of it took my breath away. She sounded so normal. "I am confused." "Melissa," I said. I tried to keep my voice steady, but it cracked on the edges. "Confused about what? Did something happen?" "I found an eviction notice on my door," I said. There was a pause. It was a fraction of a second too long. A natural reaction would be shock, a gasp, a question. "What? Why?" "Oh, Claire," she sighed. That is terrible." "But I warned you. Didn't I? I told you things were going to get rocky if you didn't get ahead of this. You don't sound surprised." I said. "I am not surprised that your life is becoming unmanageable. Claire, I am sad about it, but not surprised. You lost your job. You have no savings. Landlords smell blood in the water." I gripped the phone tighter. "I heard you." "Melissa." "Heard me?" "I heard you on the phone earlier. The lines got crossed. I heard you say you sent the money. I heard you mention Gordon." Silence. This time, the silence stretched out. I could hear the hum of her refrigerator in Larkridge, 40 miles away. I could hear the ice shifting in her glass. When she spoke again, the warmth was gone. Her voice was flat, efficient. "You are spying on me now? Is that what it has come to? Paranoia?" "I am not spying." The voicemail transcription caught it. "Why did you pay my landlord $1,000? Melissa, why are you trying to kick me out?" She laughed. It was a short, sharp sound, like a bark. "You think I paid him to kick you out?" "Claire, honestly, you are so dramatic. I paid him for a cleaning crew." "A cleaning crew?" I repeated. "Yes, I called him to see if we could work something out, to see if I could buy you some time. He told me the apartment was a disaster. He said there were smells, stains, trash. He was going to evict you for hygiene violations. I paid him a deposit for a professional deep clean to happen after you move out, so he wouldn't sue you for damages. I was trying to save your credit score." The lie was so polished, so instant, that for a second, I almost believed it. That was Melissa's superpower. She could reshape reality in real time. "My apartment is spotless." I said. "You know that." "Is it?" she asked softly. "Or is that just what you tell yourself?" "You have been depressed." "Claire, depressed people don't see the mess they live in." "I was just trying to handle it so you didn't have to face the humiliation of a health inspection." She was twisting it. She was taking my accusation and turning it into proof of my own mental instability. "I don't believe you." I said. "That is your choice," she said. "But if you are going to be ungrateful, I am done. The offer to move home still stands, but only because Mom is worried sick. Pack your things. Claire, stop fighting reality. The world is telling you to stop." She hung up. I sat there, the dial tone buzzing in my ear. She hadn't confessed. She had doubled down. She had created a narrative where she was the savior and I was the filthy, incompetent charity case, a cleaning crew. It was brilliant, evil, and completely unprovable without Gordon's side of the story. I needed Gordon. The next morning, I did my research. Pennsylvania is a two-party consent state for audio recordings. I couldn't just record him secretly and use it in court. It would be inadmissible, and worse, it could get me in legal trouble. But I could record him for my own reference, to transcribe later. To make sure I didn't miss a single word of his slippery logic, I downloaded a recording app anyway. I would deal with the legality of using it later. Right now, I needed the truth. I called the leasing office, the Briarwood management. Gordon answered. He sounded out of breath. Gordon, this is Claire Kelly in 3B. Silence, then a sigh. Claire, I told you, communicate in writing or come to the office. I am busy. You refused to put anything in writing yesterday. Gordon, I said, I am recording this call for my own records, just so we are clear on the details. I could feel him stiffen through the line. I do not consent to being recorded. He snapped. Then answer my question. I said, bluffing. My sister tells me she paid you $1,000 for a cleaning crew. Is that true? Did you accept money from a non-tenant regarding my unit? There was a shuffling of papers. I don't discuss third-party transactions. He said, so there was a transaction? Claire, you are being difficult. This is exactly why the lease is being terminated. You are hostile. Hostile? I asked. I am asking if you took a bribe. It wasn't a bribe, he shouted, his voice cracking. Then he caught himself. He lowered his voice. Look, your sister is very concerned about you. She understands the situation better than you do. She said you would cooperate if we made it quick. She said you needed a push. The slip. There it was. She said you would cooperate. So you coordinated this with her? I asked, pressing. I am terminating the call. Gordon said, do not contact me again unless it is to return your keys. The line went dead. He hadn't admitted to the money explicitly, but he had admitted to the conversation. She said you needed a push. That wasn't a landlord talking about a tenant. That was a co-conspirator. I felt a wave of nausea. It was real. It wasn't just Melissa being controlling. She had actively recruited my landlord to manufacture a crisis. I couldn't stay in the apartment. It felt like the walls were listening. I packed a backpack with my laptop, my notebook, and a water bottle, and I took the bus downtown to the free library. I needed neutral ground. I found a table in the corner and looked up the number for the local tenant advocacy clinic. I had seen their flyers on telephone poles. Black and white photocopies with tear-off tabs. Evicted? Know your rights. I called the number. A woman named Sarah answered. She sounded tired but kind. I told her everything. I told her about the job loss, the sudden notice, the weird violations, the key fob lockout, and the phone call I had overheard. When I finished, there was a long silence. Okay, Sarah said. That is a lot, but let's strip it down to the law. In Pennsylvania, a notice to quit has to be specific. He can't just say violations. He has to cite dates, times, and incidents. Does the notice have dates? No, I said. It just lists the categories. That is your first win, she said. It is structurally deficient. But Claire, listen to me. If your sister is involved, and if money changed hands, this isn't a normal eviction. This is a constructive eviction. He is trying to make your life so miserable you leave voluntarily because he knows he can't win in court. Constructive eviction. I wrote the words down. They felt heavy. What do I do? I asked. You document. Sarah said. You become a historian of your own misery. Every time the key fob fails. You video it. Every time he sends an email. You save it as a PDF. You talk to your neighbors. You get statements. And you pay your rent. I can't. I whispered. I don't have it. You have to try. She said. Even if he refuses it, you send a check via certified mail. If he sends it back, you keep the envelope sealed. That proves you tried to pay. If you stop paying, you give him the one thing he actually needs to win. Non-payment. She paused. And Claire? Check your tenant portal. Landlords like this usually get sloppy with the numbers. If he is inventing violations, He is probably inventing fees. I thanked her and hung up. I opened my laptop and logged into the tenant portal again. The interface was clunky. A mess of gray and blue boxes. I clicked on the Ledger tab. I scrolled back through 3 years of payments. Green check marks. Paid, paid, paid. Then I got to the current month. There was a red line item dated January 28th, late fee, $50. I frowned. Today was the 23rd. January 28th hadn't happened yet. I looked closer. The date of the entry was listed as post date, January 28th, 2026. But the transaction date, the metadata of when the entry was created, was 2 days ago. He had preloaded a late fee. But that wasn't the worst part. I looked at the previous month. December. Rent due. January 1st, 2026. Late fee. December 28th, 2025. He had posted a late fee for January before the January rent was even due. I stared at the screen. How is that possible? The system should block that. You can't be late for a debt that hasn't matured yet, unless he had overridden the system. I remembered what Gordon had said in his office. The management software has changed. I cannot override it. He had lied about that. 2. Or the new software was so malleable he could rewrite time. I took a screenshot, then another. I downloaded the entire ledger as a CSV file. The math didn't add up in other places. 2. There was a common area maintenance fee of $30 added in November. I checked my lease. Common area maintenance was included in the base rent. He was nickel and diming me, slipping in fees hoping I wouldn't notice because I was on autopay. System errors, he would say. But a system error that charges a late fee 3 days before the rent is due isn't a glitch, it's fraud. I felt a flicker of hope. This was hard evidence. This was numbers. Melissa could gaslight me about my mental state, but she couldn't gaslight a spreadsheet. My phone buzzed. It was an email notification. Subject: Separation documents. Important. It was from HR at my old company. I opened it, expecting the standard COBRA information and the severance agreement we had discussed. I scrolled through the PDF. Termination date: January 20th. Severance: 2 weeks. Then I saw the code. Reason for separation: involuntary. Misconduct: code 404. I stopped breathing. Misconduct? David, my manager, had said restructuring. He had said redundancy. Those are code 300s. Those are no-fault separations. Those make you eligible for unemployment benefits immediately. Misconduct meant I had done something wrong. It meant I had violated policy. It meant the state could deny my unemployment claim. I dialed HR immediately. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the phone twice before connecting. "This is Linda in HR," a cheery voice said. "Linda, this is Claire Kelly. I just received my separation papers. There is a mistake. It lists the reason as misconduct." "Oh, let me pull that up," Linda said. Keyboards clacked. "Ah, yes, Claire Kelly. No, that is correct. The file indicates a violation of company communication policy and erratic behavior." "What?" I shouted. I was in the library, and heads turned. I lowered my voice to a hiss. "What erratic behavior? David told me it was a budget cut." "The notes here are from the Director of Operations," Linda said, her voice cooling. "They cite, let's see, personal instability affecting team morale and misuse of company time. Director of Operations? I didn't even know the Director of Operations." "Wait," I said, "who submitted this?" "It was finalized yesterday," Linda said, "after a reference check inquiry." "Reference check inquiry?" "Yes. We received a call regarding your employment status, and during the review, these issues were highlighted." "Who called?" I asked, though I already knew. "I can't disclose that," Linda said, "but the code stands. Claire, if you want to contest it, you will have to file a dispute with the Department of Labor." I hung up. Melissa. She had called my job. She had called pretending to be... Who? A future employer? A concerned relative? She had called and poisoned the well. Claire is unstable. Claire is having a breakdown. She hadn't just bribed my landlord. She had sabotaged my safety net. She had ensured that I wouldn't get unemployment benefits. She was systematically cutting every rope I could use to climb out of the hole, leaving me with only one option: her guest room. I put my head on the library table. The wood was cool against my forehead. I felt like a bug in a jar. Every time I climbed up the glass, a giant hand tapped the lid, knocking me back down. It was terrifying. The scope of it was terrifying. Melissa had always been controlling, but this was pathological. This was war. I couldn't go back to the apartment yet. I needed one more piece. Sarah from the clinic had said to talk to neighbors. I waited until 5:30, when people would be coming home from work. I took the bus back to the Briarwood. I sat on the bench outside the main entrance, shivering in the cold, watching the residents trickle in. I saw Tasha Morell approaching. Tasha lived in 2B, directly below me. She was a nurse who worked night shifts. We had spoken maybe 5 times in 2 years, mostly about packages. "Tasha!" I called out, jogging over to her. She jumped, clutching her purse. When she saw it was me, she relaxed, but only slightly. Her eyes darted to the leasing office. "Hey, Claire," she said. She looked tired. Scrubs, messy bun, dark circles. "Tasha." "I know this is weird," I said, "but I am being evicted. Gordon claims there have been noise complaints. You live right under me. Have I ever been loud?" Tasha looked at her shoes. She shifted her weight. "He asked me to write one," she said quietly. "What?" "Gordon. He stopped me yesterday morning when I was coming in. He asked if I heard stomping. I told him no. I told him you walk like a ghost. And he told me—" Tasha looked around, lowering her voice. "He told me that if I signed a formal complaint saying you were blasting music at 3 a.m., he would knock $50 off my rent next month." My jaw dropped. $50. He tried to get me to commit perjury for $50. "Did you sign it?" I asked. "No," Tasha said, looking offended. "I am not lying on a legal document for $50. I told him to go to hell." "Can you prove it?" I asked. "Did he text you?" "He texted me afterwards," she said. "He sent me a message saying, 'Let me know if you change your mind about the noise issue. Offer stands.' Can I see it? Please." Tasha pulled out her phone. She scrolled back and held up the screen. There it was, a text from Gordon Pike, landlord. "Hey Tasha, just following up on our chat. If you recall those noise disturbances from 3B and want to put it in writing, I can apply that credit we discussed. Let me know." It was vague enough that he could claim he was just being a diligent manager. But in context, it was damning. "That credit we discussed. Tasha," I said, "can you screenshot that and send it to me? Please. It might be the only thing that saves me." She hesitated. "I don't want to get evicted too, Claire." "You won't," I said, channeling a confidence I didn't feel. "If we prove he is doing this, he won't be able to touch anyone. He will be too busy trying to stay out of jail." She looked at me, assessing. Then she nodded. "Okay. Sending it now." I felt my phone buzz. The image landed in my inbox. I looked at Tasha. "Thank you," I said. "You have no idea what this means." She shrugged. "I hate bullies," she said, "and I hate cheap bullies. $50? Come on." She went inside. I stood alone in the parking lot. The wind was biting, numbing my cheeks. I looked up at my apartment window. It was dark. I thought about Melissa in her warm house. I thought about Gordon in his office, probably manipulating another spreadsheet. I thought about the HR director marking me as misconduct. They thought I was weak. They thought I was the sad, scattered little sister who would cry and fold and come running home to be fixed. They thought they could starve me out, shame me out, freeze me out. I felt something shift in my chest. It wasn't the panic from yesterday. It wasn't the hurt from this morning. It was something cold and hard, like iron cooling after the forge. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to beg Gordon for time. I wasn't going to beg Melissa for mercy. I had a recording. I had a ledger full of fraudulent dates. I had a neighbor with a text message proving bribery. And I had nothing left to lose. I walked to the entrance. I pressed my key fob. Red light. I didn't cry this time. I didn't wait for a neighbor. I pulled out my phone and started recording video. I am Claire Kelly, tenant in Unit 3B. I said to the camera, my voice steady, "It is January 23rd, 6:15 p.m., my rent is paid, my lease is active, my landlord, Gordon Pike, has deactivated my access key without a court order. This is an illegal lockout." I narrated the red light flashing. I narrated the time. I narrated the temperature. Then I put the phone away, waited for a delivery driver to exit, and caught the door. I walked up the stairs, not as a victim, but as a witness. I went into my apartment, locked the door, and turned on all the lights. I cleared the kitchen table. I took the notice to quit and taped it to the wall. Next to it, I taped the printout of the separation email. Next to that, I started a list on a fresh sheet of paper. Target 1, the ledger. Target 2, the bribe. Target 3, the sister. I wasn't just going to fight the eviction. I was going to expose the ecosystem that made it possible. Melissa wanted to teach me a lesson about the real world? Fine, I would learn it, and then I would teach it back to her. The gig economy is a treadmill that goes faster the longer you stay on it. I spent my mornings fighting with the state's unemployment website, contesting the misconduct code with a series of frantic uploads, screenshots of positive performance reviews, the lack of prior warnings, the time-stamped emails from David praising my work just a week before the firing. I spent my afternoons and evenings delivering groceries to people who lived in houses I would never be able to afford. It was humbling work. I hauled cases of sparkling water up 3 flights of stairs for a $2 tip. I navigated icy driveways in my sedan, praying the transmission held out. But it was money, immediate, liquid money, and every dollar I earned felt like a brick I was placing in a wall between me and Larkridge. Melissa was relentless. She didn't scream. She eroded. She called me twice a day, always with a tone of breezy, assumed authority. I talked to Mom. She said on a Tuesday morning while I was waiting for a grocery order to be dispensed, "We think Sunday is the day. Evan can bring the truck. You don't have much furniture worth keeping anyway, right? We can just donate the mattress. It is probably old. I am not moving on Sunday." "Melissa," I said, staring at the rain streaking my windshield. "Claire, be reasonable," she said. "You have no job. You are being evicted. You are bleeding money. Why are you fighting this? It is like watching a bird fly into a window over and over again." "I am handling it," I said. "Handling it?" "You are delivering kale to strangers. Is that the plan? Look, I am trying to give you a soft landing, but the offer has an expiration date. Mom is getting anxious. She wants you settled before the estate audit next month." "A state audit?" Our Aunt Linda had passed away a year ago, leaving a complicated trust that was supposed to be split between us. But the probate had been dragging on. Melissa was the executor. "Just administrative stuff," Melissa said quickly, "but it requires signatures. It requires you to be present and compose mentis. If you are homeless and spiraling, the court might appoint a guardian for your share. It is better if you are home, safe, under our roof." The threat was subtle, wrapped in legalese. But I heard it. "Come home, or we will declare you incompetent and take your inheritance." She wanted me isolated. She wanted me dependent. And most of all, she wanted me under surveillance. I hung up and accepted the next delivery order. I needed to move faster. That night, I opened the email from Gordon. I had sent a formal request via email, copying the tenant clinic, asking for my full tenant ledger for the duration of my tenancy. Gordon had replied with a single attachment. Ledger _ Kelly _ Unit 3B ... PDF ... No text in the body of the email, just the file. I opened it. It looked official at first glance. It had the Briarwood logo at the top. It had columns for date, description, charge, and payment. But when I zoomed in, the illusion crumbled. The font for the dates in 2024 was Arial. The font for the dates in 2025 was Times New Roman. I scrolled down to November of last year. I remembered that month vividly. because I had paid rent 3 days early to clear my account before a trip. I had the bank confirmation number tattooed in my brain. The ledger showed November 1st, rent due, $1,400. The payment line for November was missing. Instead, there was a line dated November 5th that read, balance forward. He had deleted a payment. He had literally erased $1,400 from history to make it look like I was carrying a balance, and the alignment was off. The line for security deposit at the very top was crooked, as if it had been cut and pasted from another document. I printed it out. I laid it next to my bank statements. The discrepancy was laughable. I had 12 canceled checks and 24 electronic transfer confirmations that proved every single line on his ledger was a fiction. He wasn't just a bad landlord, he was a bad forger. I drafted a letter. Sarah from the clinic had given me a template, but I sharpened the edges. Dear Mr. Pike, I am in receipt of the notice to quit dated January 20th. I formally dispute the validity of this notice. The allegations of lease violations are factually incorrect and unsubstantiated. I live alone, have no unauthorized occupants, and have caused no property damage. Furthermore, the ledger you provided on January 25th is demonstrably altered. I am in possession of bank records confirming rent payments that you have omitted from this document. Attempting to evict a tenant based on falsified payment records is a violation of the Pennsylvania Unfair Trade Practices and Consumer Protection Law. I am requesting a formal grievance hearing as outlined in my lease agreement. I will not be vacating the premises. Sincerely, Claire Kelly. I sent it via certified mail with a return receipt requested. I also scanned it and emailed it to him, copying Sarah. The response was immediate. Less than 2 hours after I sent the email. My phone rang. It was the leasing office. I let it go to voicemail. I didn't want to talk to him without a witness. He left a message. Claire, this is Gordon. Look, we don't need to get lawyers involved. That helps nobody. It just eats up money. I am willing to make you a one-time offer. If you vacate the unit within 72 hours, by Friday at noon, I will drop the claims for damages. I will return your full security deposit on the spot, cash, and I won't file the eviction with the court, so your record stays clean. This is a courtesy. Call me. I played the message twice. His voice wasn't bored anymore. It was tight, high-pitched, cash for keys. It was a common tactic when landlords wanted a tenant out fast but knew they didn't have legal standing. But the speed of it, 72 hours? And offering the full deposit back after threatening to keep it for damages just 2 days ago? He was scared. My letter had spooked him. He knew the ledger was a landmine, and I had just told him I knew where he buried it. I didn't call him back. Sarah had told me, silence is loud. Let him sit in it. I turned my attention to the money. Gordon's message mentioned returning the security deposit, $1,500. I pulled out my original lease, dug out from the bottom of a filing cabinet. I read the fine print on page 4. Section 12. Security deposit. Security deposit shall be held in an escrow account at Keystone First Bank. Account number ending in 4490. Pennsylvania law requires landlords to keep security deposits in a separate escrow account. Not commingled with their personal or operating funds. They have to tell you the name of the bank. I looked at my bank statement from 3 years ago. The month I moved in, I found the scan of the cashier's check I had given him for the deposit. The endorsement on the back of the check didn't say Keystone First Bank Escrow. It was stamped G. Pike Properties, Operating. He hadn't put it in escrow. He had put it in his operating account. He had probably spent it 3 years ago on landscaping or his own mortgage. If he had commingled the funds, he had forfeited his right to keep any of it. In fact, under the law, he might owe me double. I went deeper. I went to the state's business entity search website. I typed in G. Pike Properties. Nothing. I typed in Gordon Pike. 2 results. Pike Rentals, LLC. Status, active. Briarwood Holdings, LLC. Status, dissolved. I checked the court records for Pike Rentals, LLC. 2 small claims cases from last year. Case 2025-SC-004, Martinez vs. Pike Rentals, LLC, judgment for plaintiff, Wrongful withholding of security deposit. Case 2025-SC-098, Chen v. Pike Rentals, LLC, judgment for plaintiff, failure to return deposit. The address for Pike Rentals, LLC was a P.O. box in a strip mall 3 miles away. The address for the Briarwood leasing office was different, but the name was the same. He was a serial offender. He routinely stole deposits, probably banking on the fact that most tenants, especially young ones or ones in crisis, wouldn't know how to sue him, and Melissa had handed me to him on a silver platter. She knew I was vulnerable. She knew I wouldn't have the money for a lawyer. She had fed me to a shark she thought she could control. My phone buzzed. A text message. Unknown number. Can you meet? Coffee shop on 4th and Elm. 8 p.m. Alone. Please. Evan. Evan, Melissa's husband. I stared at the screen. Evan was a quiet man. He worked in logistics. He liked golf and avoiding conflict. In 10 years of knowing him, I don't think we had ever had a conversation that wasn't about the weather or the appetizers at a family party. Why was he texting me? And why secretly? I texted back. Why? He replied, I need to tell you something. Melissa doesn't know I am asking. I hesitated. Was it a trap? Was Melissa going to be there to stage an intervention? If Melissa is there, I am leaving. I typed, she isn't. He replied, she thinks I am at the gym. I went. The coffee shop was quiet. Evan was sitting in a booth in the back, nursing a black coffee. He looked terrible. He was wearing a tracksuit, but he looked like he hadn't slept in a week. His face was pale, his eyes darting around the room. I sat down opposite him. I didn't take off my coat. What do you want, Evan? I asked. He flinched. He looked at my hands, then at my face. She is losing it. Claire, he said. His voice was a whisper. Who? Melissa. She is under a lot of pressure. Pressure she created. I said, she bribed my landlord. Evan, I heard the recording. I know you know. He rubbed his face with both hands. It is worse than that. He said, it is not just the bribe. It is the money. What money? The family money, he said. The trust. Aunt Linda's estate. What about it? I asked. The audit isn't until next month. There is no audit, Evan said. I stared at him. What do you mean? There is no audit? He repeated. Melissa made that up. She needs you to sign off on the estate closing documents because the money isn't there. The world stopped spinning for a second. What do you mean, the money isn't there? She borrowed it, Evan said, looking miserable. Last year, we were doing renovations on the house, the sunroom, the kitchen, and the contractor went over budget, and then I had a bad quarter with my investments. She borrowed from the estate account. She meant to put it back. She really did, but she couldn't. How much? I asked. He swallowed hard. 40,000, he said. I felt the blood drain from my face. $40,000. That was my inheritance. That was the money that was supposed to save me right now. She spent my inheritance on a sunroom? I asked, my voice trembling. She is trying to fix it, Evan said quickly. She is trying to get a loan to cover it before the final accounting. But she needs time, and she needs you. She needs you not to ask questions. If you hire a lawyer to look at the estate, or if the court appoints someone because they think you are unstable, she goes to jail. Claire, it is embezzlement. I sat back against the booth. The pieces clicked into place with a terrifying precision. That was why she wanted me home. That was why she wanted me broken. If I was destitute, living in her guest room, eating her food, I would be grateful for whatever scraps she gave me. I would sign whatever she put in front of me. I wouldn't demand to see the bank statements. I wouldn't hire a forensic accountant. She needed to control the narrative. Claire is unstable. Claire can't manage money. So when the money turned up missing, she could say, what? That she was managing it for me? That she had used it to pay for my cleaning crews and my rehabilitation? The eviction wasn't just punishment. It was a containment strategy. She is destroying my life to cover her crime. I said, she thinks she is saving everyone. Evan said, in her head, She fixes this, puts the money back. You get back on your feet at our house, and nobody gets hurt. She has convinced herself it is a rescue mission. And the bribe? I asked. The $1,000 to Gordon? Emergency fund, Evan said. She took it from our joint account. She told me it was to help you move. But I knew she was forcing the issue. Why are you telling me this? I asked. You are her husband. If she goes down, you might go down too. Evan looked at me, and his eyes were wet. Because she is escalating, he said. She is talking about getting power of attorney over you. She is talking to Mom about guardianship. She is telling everyone you are having a psychotic break. She is going to have you committed if she has to. Claire, I can't watch that. I can't. He slid a folded piece of paper across the table. This is the transfer confirmation for the $1,000 sent to Gordon Pike. He said, it shows the date. It shows the memo line. Expedite Unit 3B. I took the paper. My fingers felt numb. Thank you, I whispered. He stood up. Don't tell her I met you, he said. Please, just run. Claire, get a lawyer and run. He walked out of the shop, pulling his hood up. I sat there for a long time, staring at the transfer receipt. Expedite Unit 3B. It was a smoking gun. But the context was so much bigger now. I wasn't fighting a landlord who wanted to raise the rent. I was fighting a sister who needed to bury a felony. I went back to the clinic the next morning. I didn't have an appointment, but I waited until Sarah had a free 10 minutes. I told her everything. I told her about the estate, the embezzlement, the threat of guardianship. Sarah listened, her face grim. She took off her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. Okay, she said. This just went from landlord-tenant court to something much darker, but we have to stay in our lane for now. We have to kill the eviction first. If you win the eviction case, you prove you are competent. You prove you are stable. That kills her guardianship argument. She pointed to the ledger I had printed out. We need to trap Gordon, she said. He offered you cash for keys. That means he knows he is exposed. But we don't want him to just drop the case. We want him to admit the fraud. How? I asked. Strategy shift, Sarah said. Don't threaten him. Invite him to correct the record. Send him a message saying, Dear Gordon, I am reviewing my records and I see a discrepancy for November. I have a bank receipt for payment, but your ledger shows a balance. I am sure this is just a clerical error. Can you please reissue a corrected ledger so we can resolve this misunderstanding? Why be nice? I asked. He tried to ruin me. Because, Sarah said, if he corrects it, he admits the first one was wrong. If he refuses, he proves malice. And if he sends a second fake ledger, he digs the hole deeper. We give him a shovel. Claire, let him dig. I did as she asked. I sent the polite, confused email. Gordon, so sorry, but I think there is a glitch in the PDF you sent. I waited. The next day, I was sitting in my car. I was using it as a mobile office to save heating oil in the apartment, when a notification popped up on my phone. New email. Sender. Gordon Pike Management Briarwood-Properties. Subject. Mutual lease termination agreement. Urgent. I frowned. The sender address looked right. I opened it. Claire, per our conversation. Attached is the agreement to terminate your lease effective immediately. As discussed, if you sign this by 5 p.m. today, all claims for damages are waived and your full deposit will be released. Please e-sign via the link below. Best, Gordon. I hovered my thumb over the link. Click here to sign. It was tempting. Just end it. Take the money. Run. But something felt off. Per our conversation, we hadn't had a conversation. He had left a voicemail. I hadn't called back. And the email address, https://www.google.com/search?Q=briarwood-properties.com. I looked at previous emails from him. They were from https ://wg .com/search $Q equals Briarwood. .com. I checked the reply to field. On this new email, it wasn't Gordon, it was a Gmail address, :propertyservices, pagmail, .com, . It was a spoof. Someone had bought a domain that looked like the real one and sent me a fake settlement offer. If I clicked that link and signed, what was I signing? I went to a public computer at the library. I didn't trust my phone security anymore, and typed in the link address manually into a URL checker. It redirected to a DocuSign generic template. I looked at the document preview. Voluntary surrender of premises. Tenant agrees to vacate immediately. Tenant acknowledges outstanding debt of $4,000. Tenant waives all rights to future legal action. The summary in the email said, damages waived. The actual legal document said, acknowledges debt. If I signed this, I would be admitting I owed him money. I would be confessing to the debt, and I would be waiving my right to sue him for the deposit. Who would do this? Gordon wasn't this sophisticated. Gordon was bad fonts and angry voicemails. This was social engineering. This was Melissa. Melissa, who worked in accounts management. Melissa, who knew how to spoof an email. Melissa, who was getting desperate because I hadn't taken the bait on the cleaning crew story. She was trying to trick me into evicting myself. I felt a cold rage settle in my gut. She wasn't just my sister anymore. She was an adversary. She was an active threat to my survival. I took screenshots of the spoofed email. I took screenshots of the headers. I traced the IP address of the sender using a free online tool. It resolved to a residential ISP in Larkridge. I forwarded everything to Sarah. Then I texted Evan. She just tried to spoof a legal document to trick me. Tell her to stop. Now. I didn't wait for a reply. I went back to the apartment. I felt like I was walking into a bunker. I looked at my wall of evidence. Target 1. The ledger. Acquired. Target 2. The bribe. Transfer receipt acquired. Target 3. The sister. I picked up a marker and drew a red circle around the sister. She wanted a war? She wanted to drag me into court to prove I was incompetent? Fine, I would go to court, but I wouldn't be the one on trial. I sat down at my laptop and drafted a new email, not to Gordon, not to Melissa, to the court clerk. Subject: Motion for emergency hearing. Case Kelly. Versus Pike. I attached the ledger. I attached the bank statements. I attached the transfer receipt from Evan. I attached the spoofed email headers. I hit send. The soft deadline was over. The hard reality was about to begin. The envelope was yellow. That is the detail that sticks in my throat. You expect legal doom to come in white, crisp business envelopes, or maybe the terrifying brown of the tax authorities, but this was a cheerful, almost sunny yellow. I was working a temp shift at a catering hall in downtown Briar Glen. It was a wedding reception for a local car dealership owner's daughter. My job was to circulate with a tray of bacon-wrapped dates and ensure the napkins were folded into perfect swans. I was wearing black slacks and a white button-down shirt that was one size too big. The uniform of the invisible. I was invisible until 2:30 in the afternoon. A man walked into the ballroom. He was wearing a windbreaker and holding a clipboard. He didn't look like a wedding guest. He looked like a man who counted time in billable increments. He scanned the room, ignoring the bride, ignoring the father of the bride, ignoring the string quartet. He pointed at me. "Claire Kelly?" he asked. His voice boomed over the soft violin music. I froze. The tray of bacon-wrapped dates felt like it weighed 50 pounds. "Yes," I said. He walked across the dance floor. The guests parted like the Red Sea, staring. The bride stopped laughing. The room went silent, save for the violins which screeched to a halt a second later. He shoved the yellow envelope into my hand. "You are served," he said. He turned and walked out. I stood there, the center of 300 pairs of eyes. I could feel the heat rising in my face, a burning shame that started at my collarbone and consumed me whole. I looked at the envelope. Pike Rentals, LLC versus Claire Kelly, civil action for possession. A manager hustled over, gripping my elbow with fingers that felt like steel pincers. Kitchen, she hissed. Now. I was fired before I even took off the apron. They paid me for the 3 hours I had worked, $45, and told me to leave through the back alley. I sat in my car behind the dumpsters. Holding the yellow envelope, my hands were shaking. But not from the tears. I had cried enough in part 1. This was part 4. The tears had calcified into something else. I opened the packet. It was thick. It contained the formal complaint for possession, claiming non-payment of rent and breach of lease. It claimed I owed $4,000 in back rent and damages. It was a lie, a public, documented lie filed in a court of law. I took a deep breath. The shame of the ballroom was fading, replaced by the cold clarity of the task at hand. Gordon had fired the first shot. He wanted me to be embarrassed. He wanted me to hide. I picked up my phone and called Sarah at the tenant clinic. I was just served. I said, "Okay," Sarah said. Her voice was calm, an anchor in the storm. "Don't panic. This starts the clock. We have 10 days to file an answer. But we aren't just going to answer. We are going to request discovery." "Discovery?" "We ask for every piece of paper he has," Sarah said. "We ask for the lease, the ledger, the maintenance logs, the invoices for the alleged damages, the photos. We drown him in paperwork." I went home, my apartment, which still felt like home even though it was now a crime scene, and I drafted the request. I wanted to see his cards. 3 days later, the discovery packet arrived. It was a heavy manila envelope left on my doorstep. I spread the contents out on my kitchen table. It was pathetic. Gordon had submitted a resident complaint log. It was a single sheet of notebook paper with handwritten notes. January 12th. Noise from 3B. Loud music. January 15th. Smell of smoke from 3B. January 18th. Unauthorized male guest in 3B. The handwriting for all the entries was identical. The ink was the same shade of blue. It looked like it had all been written in one sitting, probably 5 minutes before he mailed it. Then I got to the photos. Exhibit C. Evidence of property damage. There were 3 printed photos. One showed a hole in a wall, one showed a stained carpet, one showed deep scratches on a hardwood floor. I picked up the photo of the floor. My apartment had parquet flooring, those little squares of wood arranged in a geometric pattern. It was old, dated, and distinctive. The floor in the photo was long, gray laminate planks. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud in my empty apartment. It was a harsh, barking sound. He was so arrogant, so sure that I was a broken, incompetent mess, that he hadn't even bothered to photograph the right unit. He had probably pulled a stock photo from a file marked generic damage and slapped it into the evidence pile. He wasn't afraid of me. You don't make mistakes this sloppy if you respect your opponent. My phone rang. It was my mother. I looked at the screen. Mom. I hadn't spoken to her in a week. I knew Melissa had been in her ear. I knew the narrative was being spun, thread by thread, until I was wrapped in a cocoon of failure. I answered, "Hello, Mom." I didn't even get a greeting. "Claire," she said, her voice trembling with that specific frequency of maternal rage and disappointment. "Melissa just told me the police were at your work." "The police?" I asked. "She said you were served with legal papers in the middle of a wedding." My mother continued. "She said you were fired for causing a scene. Claire, what is happening to you? Melissa says you are refusing to work. She says you are partying all night and disturbing the neighbors. It was amazing. The process server had become the police. The layoff had become refusing to work. The quiet evenings reading books had become partying." Melissa wasn't just lying. She was pre-writing the verdict. She was ensuring that when I inevitably crashed, the family would say, "We saw it coming." I felt the old instinct rise up, the desperate need to explain. "Mom." That's not true. Mom, I am working gig jobs. Mom, I have records. But then I looked at the yellow envelope on the table. I looked at the fake photo of the laminate floor. If I argued, I was just playing my part in Melissa's play. The hysterical younger sister. The defensive failure. I took a breath. I let the silence stretch out until my mother stopped to breathe. I have proof money changed hands. I said. My mother stopped. What? I have proof. I said again. My voice was low, steady. I have a record of a bank transfer from Melissa to my landlord. She paid him to do this. That is ridiculous. My mother snapped. Why would she do that? She is trying to help you. She wants you safe in the family home. I didn't answer the why. I didn't try to convince her. I have the receipt. Mom, I said, I am not going to argue with you. I just wanted you to know that the facts exist, whether you look at them or not. I hung up. I put the phone face down on the table. My heart was hammering against my ribs, but my hands were still. I hadn't apologized. I hadn't pleaded. I had stated a fact and exited the conversation. It was the most terrifying thing I had ever done. I needed to see Evan again. The bank transfer receipt he had given me in Part 3 was a printout. It was good, but for court, I needed provenance. I needed to know the story behind it so I could destroy Gordon's narrative that it was for cleaning. I texted him. Need to clarify something. Same place? We met an hour later. He looked worse than before. He was wearing sunglasses even though it was overcast. Evan, I said, sliding into the booth, thank you for the receipt, but I need to know exactly what she told you when she made the transfer. Gordon is claiming it was for a cleaning crew. Evan shook his head. He looked down at his coffee. She didn't tell me it was for cleaning. He said, she told me it was a family emergency. What kind of emergency? She said you were in trouble, he said. She implied you had gotten involved with drugs. I stared at him. Drugs? She said you owed a dealer money, Evan whispered. She said the dealer knew where you lived and was threatening the landlord. She said she had to pay the landlord a security fee to keep him from calling the cops on you, to buy time to get you out safely. I felt like I had been slapped. She told her husband I was a drug addict to justify bribing my landlord. It was brilliant. It covered everything. It explained the secrecy. It explained the money. It explained the urgency to move me home. It turned her crime into a heroic rescue of a junkie sister. And that is why she is so scared of the estate audit. Evan added, if the family thinks you are on drugs, they won't let you near the money. They will support her taking guardianship. Does she know you are here? I asked. No, he said. He looked terrified. But Claire, if this goes to court, and I have to testify, she will destroy me. She will take the kids. She will say I am lying to protect you. You won't have to testify if we do this right. I said, I just need the digital file, the original metadata of the transfer. Can you email it to me? He nodded. I will send it now, he said. He tapped on his phone. A second later, my phone pinged. I looked at the file. Transfer_confirmation_4490.pdf. I zoomed in on the memo line. Expedite Unit 3B. It didn't say security. It didn't say cleaning. It said expedite. Expedite means to speed up, to hasten. You expedite a package. You expedite a process. You don't expedite a cleaning crew for a tenant who hasn't moved out yet. This was the smoking gun. 2 days later, the court-ordered mediation was scheduled. In Pennsylvania, landlord-tenant disputes often go to mediation before a judge sees them. It is a chance to settle. I walked into the small conference room at the courthouse. I was wearing my only suit, the one I used to wear to client presentations. Gordon was there. He was sitting next to a man in a cheap gray suit. His attorney. Gordon wouldn't look at me. He was staring at a spot on the wall, his jaw working. The mediator, a retired judge named Mr. Henderson, sat at the head of the table. Okay, Mr. Henderson said. We are here to see if we can resolve the matter of Pike Rentals versus Kelly. Gordon's lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor, he began. Though it wasn't a formal hearing, my client is willing to be generous. We understand Ms. Kelly is going through a difficult time personally. We are prepared to offer a dismissal of all claims for back rent and damages." He paused for effect. "And," he continued, "we will return the full security deposit of $1,500. In exchange, Ms. Kelly will vacate the property within 7 days and sign a standard non-disclosure agreement regarding the terms of the settlement." He slid a paper across the table. I looked at it. It was a boilerplate NDA. Mutual release. Confidentiality. Non-disparagement. If I signed this, I couldn't tell anyone about the fake ledger. I couldn't tell anyone about the bribe. I couldn't show the expedite receipt to the estate lawyers or my family. The NDA wasn't about the apartment. The NDA was the firewall Melissa needed to keep her embezzlement safe. If I signed this, I was silencing myself forever. I looked at Gordon. "Why the NDA?" I asked. "Standard procedure," the lawyer said. "It is not standard for a simple eviction." I said. I looked at Mr. Henderson. "They are offering me money to leave. They are offering to wipe $4,000 of alleged debt. Why would a landlord do that if he has a solid case?" Mr. Henderson looked at the lawyer over his glasses. "It is a fair question." "Mr. Henderson said. I pulled a piece of paper from my folder. It was the photo of the laminate floor. "Is this the evidence you plan to use in trial?" I asked Gordon. Gordon glanced at it. He paled. "That is Exhibit C," his lawyer said. "That is not my apartment," I said. "I have parquet floors. This is a stock photo, or a photo of a different unit. This is perjury." The lawyer snatched the photo. He whispered something to Gordon. Gordon looked like he wanted to vomit. "We can amend the exhibit list," the lawyer stammered. "I am not signing the NDA. I said, I am not vacating, and I am not settling. I want a trial." Gordon slammed his hand on the table. "You ungrateful little—" he started. "Gordon," his lawyer hissed. "Mr. Henderson raised a hand. "If there is no settlement, we proceed to the evidentiary hearing next week," he said. I walked out of the courthouse feeling lightheaded. I had turned down the easy way out. I had turned down the money, but I had kept my voice. I spent the next 3 days turning into an investigative journalist. I had the expedite receipt, but I needed to understand the machine. Why did Gordon take the risk? Why was he so sloppy? I went to the Public Records Office. I pulled the docket sheets for every eviction filed by Pike Rentals, LLC, or Gordon Pike in the last 5 years. There were 42 of them. I started looking for patterns. I looked up the defendants on social media. It was gruesome work. Case 2023LT099. Defendant Sarah Jenkins. Facebook profile showed she had been diagnosed with breast cancer 2 months before the filing. Case 2024LT012. Defendant Mark Rosso. LinkedIn showed he had been laid off from a factory job 3 weeks before the eviction. Case 2025LT045. Defendant Elena Rostova. Obituary showed her husband had died a month prior to the filing. Gordon didn't just evict people. He hunted the wounded. He waited for a life event, a death, a sickness, a job loss, that would drain a tenant's resources and fight. Then he struck. He filed bogus claims, kept the security deposits, and bet that the tenant would be too overwhelmed to fight back. It was a volume business. But where did the money go? He kept the deposits, sure. But how did he justify keeping them? I went back to the discovery packet. I looked at the invoice for repairs he had submitted to justify the $4,000 he claimed I owed. Invoice 4,409. Vendor: Apex General Contracting Description: drywall repair, carpet replacement, painting. Amount: $4,200. Apex General Contracting. The name sounded familiar. I pulled up my sister Melissa's LinkedIn profile. Melissa Rourke, Senior Accounts Manager at Apex General Contracting. The room spun. It wasn't just a one-time bribe. It was a loop. Gordon evicted tenants. He claimed damages. He hired Apex General Contracting to fix the damages. Melissa, as the accounts manager, approved the invoices, or perhaps even generated them. Did the work ever happen? I looked at the invoice again. Carpet replacement. He had claimed he replaced my carpet. I still lived there. The carpet was 5 years old. They were billing for phantom repairs. Gordon got to keep the security deposit. Apex got paid for work they didn't do. And Melissa? She probably got a commission, or a bonus. Or maybe she and Gordon split the difference. That explained why she felt comfortable asking him to evict me. They were partners in crime. They had probably done this a dozen times, but this time, she had used their machine against her own sister. I sat back in my chair. The scale of it was nauseating. It wasn't just a family dispute, it was a racketeering enterprise, and I was the glitch in the system. I was the one victim who wasn't just going to disappear into the night. I looked at the invoice, I looked at the transfer receipt, I looked at the fake photo. My psychology shifted. For weeks, I had been fighting to save my apartment. I had been fighting to save my reputation. I had been fighting to prove I wasn't a failure. But now I was fighting for Sarah Jenkins with the breast cancer. I was fighting for Mark Rosso who lost his job. I was fighting for every vulnerable person Gordon and Melissa had chewed up and spit out to fund their sunrooms and their fantasy football leagues. I wasn't the defendant anymore. I was the prosecutor. I organized my files. I didn't just have a defense. I had an indictment. I texted Sarah at the clinic. I found the connection. Melissa works for the contractor Gordon uses. The invoices are fake. It is a kickback scheme. Sarah replied instantly. Do not tell anyone. Do not post this. Bring everything to court. We are going to drop a bomb. I went to sleep that night. But I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, listening to the wind rattle the window panes. I thought about Melissa. I thought about the way she used to brush my hair. I thought about the way she had looked at me at Christmas, smiling, asking if I was doing okay, while she was probably already planning how to extract my inheritance. She had chosen the moment I was weakest to strike. She thought I was prey. She forgot that even prey has teeth. The next morning, the day before the trial, I went to work at a new gig, unpacking boxes at a warehouse. It was mindless physical labor. My phone buzzed at noon. It was an email from Evan. She knows. He wrote, Gordon told her you wouldn't sign the NDA. She is coming to your apartment. I couldn't stop her. I stared at the phone. I left the warehouse. I didn't care about the gig. I drove home. Melissa's SUV was parked in front of the building. She was standing by the main entrance, waiting for someone to let her in. She was wearing a camel hair coat and tall boots. She looked immaculate. She looked like the hero of her own story. I pulled up and got out of my car. She saw me. Her face tightened. Claire, she said. She walked toward me, her heels clicking on the pavement. We need to talk, she said. We have nothing to talk about. I said. I stood between her and the door. Stop this. Claire, she hissed. You are embarrassing the family. You are embarrassing yourself. Gordon offered you a settlement. Take it. Why? I asked. So you can hide the $40,000 you stole from Aunt Linda's estate? She stopped. Her face went white. It wasn't the gradual pallor of fear. It was the instant, shock white of exposure. How? Who told you that? She whispered. It doesn't matter. I said, I know about the estate. I know about the bribe. And I know about Apex General Contracting. I know you and Gordon have been running fake invoices through your company for years. She took a step back. She looked around the parking lot, checking for witnesses. You don't know what you're talking about, she said. But her voice lacked its usual steel. It was brittle. I have the invoices. Melissa, I said, I have the ledger. I have the transfer receipt with expedite on it. And tomorrow morning, I am going to give all of it to a judge. Melissa stared at me. For a moment, I saw the sister I used to know, the one who was scared of thunderstorms. But then the mask slammed back down. You will destroy this family, she said. If you do this, Mom will never forgive you. You will be alone. Claire, forever. I looked at her. I really looked at her. I am already alone. I said, you saw to that. I turned my back on her. Claire, she screamed. It was a raw, ugly sound. I keyed into the building. The fob worked. Thanks to my threat of a lockout suit, and I didn't look back. I walked up the stairs. I could hear her engine revving outside. Then the screech of tires as she sped away. She was running. I went into my apartment and locked the door. I sat down at my table and looked at my evidence wall. Target 1. The ledger. Done. Target 2. The bribe. Done. Target 3. The sister. I picked up the red marker. I didn't cross it out. I drew a line from the sister to a new target I wrote at the bottom of the page. Target 4. The system. Tomorrow. I wasn't just going to win an eviction case, I was going to burn the whole house down. Preparation is not dramatic. It is not a montage of furious typing and coffee cups. It is slow, tedious archaeology. I sat at the metal table in the tenant advocacy clinic, surrounded by stacks of paper that smelled like toner and stale air. Sarah, my caseworker, was building a timeline on a whiteboard. She used a black marker to draw a straight line, dissecting the last month of my life into days and hours. January 20th. Notice to quit posted, she said, writing the date. But the metadata on the inspection email says January 21st. That is our first inconsistency. She drew a hash mark. January 22nd, she continued. Key fob deactivated. Illegal lockout. Hash mark. January 23rd. Tenant portal shows late fee for a future date. Fraudulent ledger entry. Hash mark. She stepped back. The board looked like a battle plan. It was a visual representation of the gaslighting I had endured. But there was a gap. We had the what and the when, but we were still solidifying the why. We need to tie the room together. Sarah said, we have the expedite transfer receipt from your brother-in-law. That is the smoking gun. But we need to make sure the judge understands the motive isn't just a landlord wanting you out. It is a conspiracy to destabilize you. I looked at my phone. I had been ignoring it for 2 hours. I have an idea. I said, I picked up the phone and dialed David, my former manager. I didn't expect him to answer. He had ghosted me since the firing, probably on instructions from HR. But I knew David. He was a weak man. But he wasn't a cruel one. He had kids. He coached soccer. He felt guilt. I called his cell, not his office line. Hello? He sounded wary. David, it is Claire. I said, don't hang up. I am not asking for my job back. I am not asking for money. Claire, I really can't discuss the termination, he said. It is against policy. I know. I said, I am just asking for a personal kindness. I am in a legal battle. David, I am being evicted, and I found out that the reason I was denied unemployment is because the separation code was listed as misconduct. You told me it was restructuring. Silence. I could hear him breathing. David, I asked, did someone call you? Before you fired me? He hesitated. Claire, did a woman call you? I pressed. Did she say she was a reference check? Did she tell you I was unstable? He sighed. It was a long, heavy sound of surrender. She didn't say she was a reference check. He said quietly, she said she was your sister. She called the main line and asked for me. She said she was worried about you. She said you were having episodes, that you were showing signs of a breakdown. My hand gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. And you believed her? She knew details. Claire. She knew about the project deadlines you missed last month. She knew about the client meeting where you were 5 minutes late. She framed it all as symptoms. She said, if we didn't let you go gently, you might do something drastic in the office. She made it sound like a safety issue. So you fired me to protect the office? I asked, my voice trembling. HR got spooked. David said, they didn't want a liability, so we changed the code to misconduct based on behavioral unpredictability. We thought we were helping you get help. She said she had a facility lined up. I closed my eyes. She manipulated you. David, I said, she needed me unemployed so she could force me back into her house. She used you. I am sorry. Claire, he whispered, I really am. I hung up. I looked at Sarah. She called him. I said, she poisoned the well. She turned restructuring into safety threat. Sarah added a new line to the whiteboard in red ink. January 19th. Melissa contacts employer, sabotage. The picture was complete. It wasn't just an eviction, it was a demolition. Then the phone rang again. A number I didn't recognize. Local area code. I almost didn't answer. I was tired of voices. But Sarah nodded. Hello? Is this Claire Kelly? A woman's voice. Raspy. Sounds like a smoker. Yes, this is Lena Hargrove. She said, I used to work for Gordon Pike. My heart stopped. Lena, the assistant who had been there when I moved in. The one who always looked exhausted, buried under files. Lena, I said, hi. I saw the docket. She said, I follow the court filings. Force of habit. I saw he is trying to evict you. Yes. I said, is he using the noise complaint angle? She asked. Or the damage angle? Both. I said, classic. She said. She let out a dry chuckle. Look, I didn't call to chat. I called because I'm sick of him. I quit 3 months ago because he made me do things that, well, things that kept me up at night. What kind of things? He has a system, Lena said. When he wants a unit back, usually because he wants to raise the rent, or because he promised it to a friend, he tells the assistant to go into the software and backdate a notice. He makes us create inspection logs for inspections that never happened. He made me Photoshop a cigarette burn onto a carpet photo once. I looked at Sarah. She was furiously taking notes. Lena, I said, would you be willing to say that to a judge? Silence. I signed an NDA when I left. She said, ND. As don't cover illegal acts. Sarah whispered to me. I repeated it. Lena, ND as can't silence evidence of a crime. If you testify, you are protected. I heard the click of a lighter on the other end. She was smoking. He owes me $2,000 in commissions. She said, he stiffed me on my last check. You know what? Screw him. I will write a statement. I will tell them about the portal manipulation. I will tell them about the ghost fees. Thank you. I said, you have no idea what this means. I do, she said. I was the one who used to type up the eviction notices. I know exactly what it means. Sarah and I worked for 6 hours straight. We drafted a motion for sanctions. In legal terms, we were asking the court to punish Gordon not just for the eviction, but for submitting false evidence. We attached the analysis of the portal metadata. We attached the discrepancy in the fonts on the ledger. We attached a draft of Lena's affidavit. We filed it electronically at 4:59 p.m. The reaction was almost chemical in its speed. At 5:30, my phone blew up. Gordon, I didn't answer. He called again, and again. Then the voicemail notification popped up. I put it on speaker. Claire, this is Gordon. What the hell is this motion? You are filing frivolous paperwork. You are racking up legal fees. You think a judge is going to listen to a disgruntled ex-employee? You are making a huge mistake. Call me immediately and withdraw this motion, or I will sue you for defamation. He sounded terrified. His voice cracked on the word defamation. A man confident in his truth doesn't scream about defamation on a voicemail. He just calls his lawyer. Gordon was panicking because the clerk had likely called him, asking for the original files to cross-reference with our claims, and the original files didn't exist. I saved the voicemail. Evidence 42. But Gordon wasn't the only one reacting. The ecosystem was reacting. Melissa texted me at 7 o'clock. Can I come over? We need to talk. Peace offering. I didn't reply. She texted again. I know about the motion. Gordon called me. Claire, this is getting out of hand. You are going to get hurt. Please let me help you end this. I texted back. No. She called. I watched the phone ring. Sister? The word looked like a threat on the screen. I answered. What is the offer? Melissa? I asked. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. Drop the motion, she said. Move out by Sunday. I will pay the $4,000 Gordon claims you owe. I will pay your moving costs. I will give you $5,000 cash to get settled here at the house, and I will make sure Gordon seals the record so no one ever sees the eviction filing. It sounded like a rescue. To anyone else, it would look like incredible generosity. But I heard the trap. Come home, take my money, be in my debt, be silent. And if I don't? I asked. Then you are on your own. Claire. And when you lose, and you will lose, because he has better lawyers than you will have an eviction on your record. You will never rent again. You will be unemployable. And the family. Mom is already devastated. If you drag this out, if you drag me into court, they will never forgive you. There it was. The leverage. I am not dragging you into court. Melissa. I said, you walked into court when you paid a bribe. I hung up. Then the flying monkeys arrived. That is what Sarah called them. The enablers. The family members sent to do the narcissist's bidding. My Aunt Carol texted me. Claire, honey, I heard you are having a hard time. Remember Proverbs 15:1. A soft answer turns away wrath. Please make peace with your sister. She loves you so much. My cousin Mike sent a message. Hey, heard things are rough. Don't be too proud to ask for help. Melissa is really worried about your mental state. My mother sent a voice memo. It was 3 minutes of crying. I don't understand why you are attacking us. We just want you safe. Why are you so angry? Why can't you just come home? They didn't know the facts. They didn't know about the embezzlement. They didn't know about the fake invoices. Melissa had curated the information perfectly. To them. I was the prodigal daughter, flailing in the mud, refusing the warm towel. I sat on my floor, reading the messages. The guilt was a physical weight. It pressed on my chest. It whispered that maybe I was crazy. Maybe I should just give up. It would be so easy to surrender, to sleep in a warm bed in Larkridge, to let Melissa handle the world. But then I looked at the wall. Target 4. The system. If I went back, I wasn't just surrendering myself. I was allowing them to keep doing this. I was letting Melissa steal my inheritance. I was letting Gordon steal from the next cancer patient. I turned off my phone. The next morning, I had to switch gears. I had an interview. It was for a communications coordinator role at a nonprofit that focused on urban literacy. It was a job I actually wanted. It paid $45,000 a year, not a fortune. But enough to be free. I put on my suit. I did my makeup to hide the dark circles. I looked in the mirror. I looked like a professional. I didn't look like a defendant. The interview went well. The director, a woman named Ellen, seemed to like me. We bonded over a shared love of vintage typewriters. At the end, she smiled. We have a few more candidates, she said. But I really like your energy. Claire, we will be doing background checks next week. Is there anything on there we should know about? My stomach dropped. The eviction filing was public record. Even though it hadn't been decided yet, it was there. Pike Rentals versus Kelly and the separation code from my last job. Misconduct. I had a choice. Lie or get ahead of it. I chose the truth, or a version of it. I am currently in a legal dispute with my landlord regarding a lease error. I said, it is being resolved in court, but you might see a filing, and my previous termination is also under dispute due to a clerical error with HR. Ellen's smile faltered just a fraction. Okay, she said, thanks for letting us know. We appreciate transparency. I walked out knowing I probably wouldn't get the job. Not with those red flags, not when there were 20 other candidates with clean records. That realization hardened me. Melissa had done this. She had stained my name so thoroughly that even my best efforts were tainted. I couldn't just settle. I couldn't just walk away. I needed a complete, total exoneration. I needed a court order that said I am innocent. If I signed an NDA, I couldn't explain the eviction to a future employer. I would just have to say, no comment. And no comment looks like guilt. I needed the judgment. 2 days later, we were back in the courthouse. Mediation round 2, the dynamic had changed. Gordon looked tired. His tie was crooked. His lawyer looked annoyed. Sarah and I sat down. We placed 2 folders on the table. Gordon's lawyer started, Look, we received your motion. We think it is hyperbolic, but my client is tired of this. We are increasing the offer. We will give you $2,000 to move out. Same terms. NDA. 7 days. I opened the first folder. I slid the screenshot of the bank transfer across the table. Date: January 20th. From Melissa Rourke to Gordon Pike. Memo: Expedite Unit 3. B. Gordon's lawyer picked it up. He squinted at it. He looked at Gordon. "What is this?" the lawyer asked. Gordon shifted in his seat. "It is a cleaning deposit," he muttered. "From her sister." I opened the second folder. I slid Lena Hargrove's affidavit across the table. Lena Hargrove, attest that Gordon Pike instructed me to manipulate the tenant portal to show late fees for dates that had not yet occurred. The lawyer read the first paragraph. He stopped. He read the second paragraph. He put the paper down. He took off his glasses. He looked at Gordon with a look of pure loathing. "You didn't tell me about the portal," the lawyer said. "It is a glitch," Gordon shouted. "Lena is a liar. She is trying to blackmail me." "And the money?" the lawyer asked. Pointing to the transfer receipt, Gordon didn't answer. The lawyer turned to me. His voice was different now. It was respectful, careful. "Ms. Kelly," he said, "can we have a moment? I need to confer with my client." Sarah and I waited in the hallway. I leaned against the wall, watching the people rush by. Lawyers, defendants, families, the machinery of justice. 10 minutes later, the door opened. The lawyer beckoned us back in. Gordon looked like he had been yelled at. He was staring at his hands. "Okay," the lawyer said. "Here is the situation. We are prepared to dismiss the case with prejudice. That means we can't file it again. We will return the security deposit. We will give you 30 days to move. But we need the NDA. My client has privacy concerns regarding his business practices. He was afraid of the class action suit. He was afraid of the other tenants finding out." "No," I said. The lawyer sighed. "Ms. Kelly, take the win. You get the dismissal. You get the money. It is not enough," I said. I pulled out a piece of paper where I had written my terms. "Here is what I want," I said. 1. Dismissal with prejudice. 2. A formal letter from the landlord to the credit bureaus and tenant screening agencies stating that the filing was an error and the tenant is in good standing. 3. Return of the security deposit, $3,000, which is double the amount, as per the penalty for commingling funds. 4. Relocation costs of $5,000. 5. A sworn statement from Gordon Pike acknowledging that the notices were backdated and the noise complaints were fabricated. 6. No NDA. I retain the right to speak about this case, to publish the evidence, and to assist other tenants. Gordon looked up. His face was purple. "Are you insane?" he spat. "I am not signing a confession. And no NDA? You will destroy my reputation. Your reputation is already destroyed." I said, "It just hasn't been distributed yet." Gordon's lawyer looked at the list. "We can't agree to number 5 or number 6, he said. "Number 5 is an admission of fraud. Number 6 exposes my client to limitless liability. Then we go to trial." Sarah said. The lawyer looked at the affidavit again. He knew if Lena testified, Gordon wasn't just losing the eviction. He was losing his license, maybe facing criminal charges. He needs time. The lawyer said, "We can't sign this today. You have until the evidentiary hearing." I said, "When is that?" Gordon asked. Mr. Henderson, the mediator, looked at his calendar. "I can squeeze you in on Thursday," he said. 3 days from now. Thursday. I stood up. "See you in court, Gordon." I walked out. My legs were shaking, but I felt tall. I had just turned down a settlement that would have solved all my immediate problems. I had turned down safety. I got into my car and checked my phone. A text from Evan. She is panicking. She knows about the hearing. She is coming to the court on Thursday. She says she is going to testify that you are mentally incompetent and that the money was for your own good. She is bringing Mom. I stared at the screen. She was going to play the ultimate card. She was going to stand up in open court, under oath, and declare me insane to protect her lie. She was going to use my mother as a prop. It was going to be a bloodbath. I started the car. I wasn't afraid of the bloodbath. I had the facts. I had the ledger. I had Lena. And I had one more thing I hadn't used yet. I drove to the library. I logged onto the public computer. I pulled up the records for the Aunt Linda estate. I searched for the inventory of assets. Cash on hand. $100,000. I search for the most recent filing. Disbursements. None. But Evan said $40,000 was missing. If the court records showed the money was there, but the bank account was empty, that meant Melissa had forged the court filings too. I needed to prove that. I needed a subpoena for the estate bank records. I called Sarah. Sarah, I said, we need to expand the witness list for Thursday. Who? She asked. My sister, I said, and the bank manager for the Linda Rourke Trust. Sarah was silent for a moment. Claire, she said, if you do this, you aren't just winning an eviction, you are sending your sister to prison. I looked at the rain hitting the windshield. I thought about the misconduct code. I thought about the drug addict lie. I thought about the fake cleaning crew. She built the cell. Sarah, I said, I am just locking the door. The courtroom smelled of floor wax and old paper. It was a smell I used to associate with jury duty, a boring civic obligation. Now, it smelled like a cage match. I sat at the plaintiff's table, technically the defendant's, though the momentum had shifted so violently in the last 48 hours that it felt like I was the one pressing charges. Sarah sat next to me, her binder thick with our exhibits. On the other side, Gordon Pike sat with his lawyer. Gordon was wearing a suit that was slightly too shiny. He looked annoyed, checking his watch, as if evicting me was a dentist appointment that was running late. The judge was a woman named Judge Reynolds. She had gray hair pulled back in a severe bun and reading glasses on a chain. She looked tired. She looked like she had heard every lie a landlord could tell and every excuse a tenant could invent. Gordon took the stand first. His lawyer walked him through the opening questions. Gordon answered with a practiced ease. He painted a picture of a benevolent property manager forced to take action against a spiraling tenant. Ms. Kelly was a model tenant for 2 years, Gordon said, leaning into the microphone. But in January, things changed. We received multiple complaints about noise, loud music, shouting, and when we inspected the unit, we found significant damage to the flooring. And the rent? His lawyer asked. Unpaid, Gordon said, and she has refused to communicate with the office except through hostile emails. Sarah stood up for the cross-examination. She didn't look hostile. She looked curious. Mr. Pike, Sarah said, you stated that you inspected the unit on January 21st. Is that correct? Yes, Gordon said. And you took photos of the damage? Yes. Sarah walked to the evidence table. She picked up Exhibit C, the photo of the scratched laminate floor. Mr. Pike, please look at this photo. This is the damage you are citing as grounds for eviction? That is correct, Gordon said. Sarah turned to the judge. Your Honor, I would like to submit Exhibit D. These are photos of Unit 3B taken yesterday, time-stamped and verified. She handed the photos to the judge. Then to Gordon. Mr. Pike, Sarah said, can you describe the flooring in Miss Kelly's apartment? Gordon squinted at the photo. It is wood. He said, it is parquet flooring. Sarah said, small geometric squares of wood, a style that was popular in the 1960s. Gordon shifted in his chair. So? He asked. So, Sarah continued, her voice sharpening. The photo you submitted as Exhibit C shows gray laminate plank flooring, the kind that clicks together, the kind you installed in the renovated units on the second floor. Gordon froze. He looked at his lawyer. His lawyer was staring at the ceiling. It might be a filing error. Gordon stammered. I manage a lot of units. My assistant might have uploaded the wrong file. A filing error. Sarah repeated. Okay, let us talk about another error. She picked up the ledger. Mr. Pike, your ledger shows a late fee of $50 applied on January 28th. Correct, Gordon said. She was late. Today is January 22nd, Sarah said. The courtroom went very quiet. Gordon blinked. Excuse me? The ledger you submitted to the court is dated January 28th. Sarah said, you charged a late fee for a date that is 6 days in the future. How does your software know Ms. Kelly will be late next week? Gordon opened his mouth. Closed it, opened it again. The system. He started. It pre-calculates. It pre-calculates penalties? Sarah asked. Or did you manually override the system to create a balance due so you could file this eviction? I did not, Gordon shouted. He was sweating now, a sheen of perspiration on his forehead. It is a glitch. The software is new. Sarah didn't let up. We have an affidavit from your former assistant, Lena Hargrove, Sarah said. She states that you routinely instructed her to backdate notices and manipulate the ledger to justify evictions. Gordon's face turned a mottled red. Lena is a disgruntled employee, he yelled. She stole from me. You can't trust a word she says. Judge Reynolds lowered her glasses. Mr. Pike, she said. Her voice was low, but it carried to the back of the room. Lower your voice. Gordon slumped back, breathing hard. The confidence was gone. He looked small. Sarah walked back to our table. She picked up the final piece of paper. The one Evan had sent me. One last question. Mr. Pike, Sarah said. She placed the screenshot of the bank transfer on the stand. Do you recognize this transaction? Gordon looked at it. His eyes widened. He tried to look away, but he couldn't. I receive a lot of payments, he said. This is a transfer of $1,000 into your personal account, dated January 20th. Sarah said, the sender is Melissa Rourke. The memo line reads, Expedite Unit 3B. Gordon said nothing. Who is Melissa Rourke? Sarah asked. She is a vendor, Gordon said. A cleaning vendor. A cleaning vendor paid you? Sarah asked. Usually. You pay vendors. Why would a cleaning vendor pay you $1,000 to expedite a unit that was still occupied? Gordon looked at his lawyer. His lawyer was packing up his briefcase. He knew it was over. Judge Reynolds leaned forward. Mr. Pike. The judge said, answer the question. Gordon looked at me. His eyes were full of hate. She wanted her out, Gordon muttered. Who? The judge asked. Melissa, Gordon said. She said the tenant was trouble. She said she needed her out fast. She paid me to speed up the process. Judge Reynolds turned to me. Ms. Kelly, she asked, who is Melissa Rourke? I stood up. My legs felt heavy. But my voice was steady. I didn't look at Gordon. I looked at the judge. She is my sister, Your Honor. I said. A murmur ran through the courtroom. The stenographer looked up. The bailiff shifted his stance. Your sister? Judge Reynolds repeated. Yes, Your Honor. At that moment, the double doors at the back of the courtroom swung open. It wasn't a subtle entrance. It was a collision. Melissa walked in. She was wearing a tailored navy suit and carrying a designer bag. She looked frantic. Her hair was slightly windblown. Her cheeks flushed. She scanned the room. Saw me. Saw Gordon. Saw the judge. She marched down the center aisle. Your Honor, she announced. I apologize for being late. I am a witness. I need to speak. The bailiff stepped in front of her. Ma'am, you can't just walk in here, the bailiff said. I am Melissa Rourke, she said, her voice high and tight. I am the one who paid the money. I need to explain. Judge Reynolds banged her gavel. Order, the judge said. She looked at Melissa. Approach the bench. Melissa walked through the gate. She stood next to Gordon, but she didn't look at him. She looked at me. Her eyes were pleading. Desperate. Your Honor, Melissa said, breathless. There is a misunderstanding. I did pay Mr. Pike $1,000. But it wasn't a bribe. It was charity. Charity? The judge asked. My sister is unwell, Melissa said. She spoke fast, the words tumbling out. She lost her job. She was living in squalor. I was trying to help her move home. I paid Mr. Pike to cover the cleaning costs and the lease break fee so she wouldn't have an eviction on her record. I was trying to save her credit. Gordon looked at Melissa. You told me she was a drug addict, Gordon blurted out. The room went silent again. Melissa froze. She turned to Gordon. Shut up, she hissed. Gordon turned to the judge. She told me her sister was on drugs and owed money to dealers, Gordon shouted, desperate to shift the blame. She said the dealers were coming to the building. She said I had to get her out for the safety of the other tenants. That is why I expedited it. I thought I was preventing a crime. Melissa's face crumbled. The mask of the benevolent savior slipped, revealing the panic underneath. I never said that, Melissa shrieked. You are lying! You sent me the money! Gordon yelled back. You told me to use the noise complaints because they were faster than non-payment. Judge Reynolds slammed the gavel down. It sounded like a gunshot. Enough, she roared. She glared at Gordon. Then she glared at Melissa. I have heard enough, the judge said. The landlord has admitted to accepting payment from a third party to expedite an eviction. He has admitted to fabricating the reason for the eviction, and the evidence shows the ledger was manipulated and the photographic evidence was falsified. She turned to the court clerk, dismissed with prejudice. The judge said, Gordon's lawyer let out a long exhale, and while the judge continued, I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for investigation into fraud and perjury. Mr. Pike, you are to remain in the building. Mrs. Rourke, you are to remain in the building. Melissa's mouth fell open. Me? She asked. But I was helping. Sit down, the judge said. The bailiff guided them to the bench. Sarah grabbed my arm. We go, she whispered. Now. We walked out of the courtroom. The heavy doors closed behind us, muffling the sound of Gordon arguing with the bailiff. In the hallway, the air felt cooler. I took a deep breath. It was the first breath I had taken in weeks that didn't taste like fear. Gordon's lawyer came bursting out a moment later. He looked frantic. Ms. Kelly, he called out. Wait. Sarah stopped him with a raised hand. The case is dismissed. Counselor, Sarah said, we have nothing to discuss. We can settle the civil claims. The lawyer said. He was sweating. Look, Gordon is in trouble, real trouble. We will write you a check today. $10,000. Just sign a statement saying it was a misunderstanding. Please. I looked at him. $10,000? I asked. 15? The lawyer said. 15,000. Cash. Today. I looked at Sarah. She shook her head slightly. No. I said. 20. The lawyer said. Ms. Kelly, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I said, I am letting the truth stand on the record. You can't buy that back. We turned and walked away. My phone rang in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a local number. The nonprofit. I stared at the screen. I had forgotten about the job. I had forgotten about the future. Hello? I answered. Hi, Claire. This is Ellen. My heart hammered. Hi, Ellen. Look, Claire, Ellen said. Her voice was serious. We ran the background check this morning. We saw the filing. Pike Rentals versus Kelly. I closed my eyes. It was still there. It was dismissed. I said, just now, 10 minutes ago, with prejudice. The judge ruled it was a fraudulent filing. There was a pause. Do you have the paperwork? Ellen asked. I will have it in an hour. I said, okay. Ellen said, send it to me. If it says dismissed with prejudice, we can work with that. But Claire, we need it today. The board is meeting tonight to approve the hire. I understand. I said, you will have it. I hung up. I was fighting for my life in real time. The eviction was over, but the scar was still fresh. I needed that paper. I was about to head back to the clerk's office when I saw Evan. He was standing near the elevators, looking like a ghost. He wasn't wearing his usual work clothes. He was wearing jeans and a hoodie. He looked like he was trying to disappear. Evan, I said. He jumped. Is she in there? He asked, pointing to the courtroom. She is being detained. I said, the judge referred it to the DA. Evan closed his eyes and leaned his head against the wall. Oh God, he whispered. Evan, I said, I need to ask you something. I know about the embezzlement. I know about the bribe. But there is one piece I don't get. Why the eviction? Why not just ask me to sign the papers? Evan opened his eyes. He looked at me with a profound sadness. Because of the loan. He said, what loan? The family loan agreement, he said. She drafted it 3 weeks ago. I stared at him. I don't understand. That was the plan. Claire, he said, Step 1. Evict you. Step 2. You have no money and nowhere to go. Step 3. You move in with us. Step 4. She offers to loan you $40,000 to get back on your feet, to pay off debts, get a new apartment, get a car. 40,000. I repeated, the exact amount she stole. Exactly, Evan said, but the loan agreement had a clause. It was collateralized by your future inheritance. If you couldn't pay back the loan within 12 months, and she knew you couldn't, because she was going to sabotage your job hunt too, the debt would be satisfied by transferring your share of the Aunt Linda estate to her. My mouth went dry. It was a circle, a perfect, vicious circle. She steals $40,000 from the estate. She evicts me to make me desperate. She loans me phantom money, maybe just on paper, or maybe moving money around from the joint account. I sign over my inheritance to repay the loan. She uses my inheritance to fill the hole she made in the estate account. She wasn't just stealing from me. She was making me pay for my own robbery. It is monstrous, I whispered. She convinced herself it was love. Evan said, she told me she was teaching you financial responsibility. She said she was giving you a safety net. He pushed off the wall. I have to go, he said. I have to go pick up the kids. I have to tell them. I don't know what I'm going to tell them. He walked away toward the exit. I stood there, processing the cruelty of it. It was financial cannibalism. I got the paperwork from the clerk, stamped dismissed with prejudice in beautiful, dark ink. I scanned it with my phone and emailed it to Ellen. Then I walked out of the courthouse. My mother was waiting on the steps. She was standing with my Aunt Carol. They looked like a wall of beige wool and disapproval. Claire, my mother called out. I stopped. I didn't walk to them. I made them walk to me. Where is Melissa? My mother asked. She sounded frantic. She isn't answering her phone. She is inside. Mom, I said, the judge is talking to her. What happened? Aunt Carol asked. Did you drop the case? Did you make up? I looked at them. I looked at the worry in their eyes. Worry for Melissa. Worry for the order of things. I pulled out the transfer receipt. I held it up. Melissa paid my landlord to evict me. I said, she lied to him and said I was on drugs. She lied to my boss and said I was unstable. And she did it all because she stole $40,000 from Aunt Linda's estate and needed to trick me into covering it up. My mother stared at the paper. She didn't take it. She recoiled from it as if it were radioactive. That can't be true, she stammered. Melissa handles the finances. She is the responsible one. Ask Evan, I said, or ask the district attorney. They are opening an investigation. My mother's face hardened. It wasn't the reaction of a mother discovering her child had been wronged. It was the reaction of a matriarch watching the china cabinet fall over. Claire, she said, her voice dropping to a hiss, you have to stop this. You have to go back in there and tell the judge it was a misunderstanding. What? I asked. Think about the family, Aunt Carol said. Think about your cousins. If Melissa gets in trouble, if this gets in the papers, it will ruin us. People will talk. We can fix the money, my mother said. We can pool some funds. We can pay back the estate. But you have to withdraw the accusation. You have to say you were confused. I stared at them. They knew. Deep down, they knew I was telling the truth. But the truth was inconvenient. The truth was messy. The truth meant admitting that the good daughter was a criminal and the failure daughter was the victim. They preferred the lie. The lie was comfortable. I realized then that the eviction hadn't just been about an apartment. It had been an expulsion from the family narrative. And now, they were asking me to burn myself alive to keep them warm. No, I said. Claire, my mother shouted. Don't you walk away from me. I am not walking away. I said, I was kicked out. Remember? I walked down the steps. I hailed a cab. I didn't look back. The aftermath came in waves. Ellen called me back an hour later. You got the job. I started the next Monday. The investigation into Gordon Pike exploded. Lena's testimony opened the floodgates. 7 other tenants came forward. The state revoked his rental license. He was facing heavy fines and potential jail time for fraud. And Melissa? The DA took the case. Embezzlement, witness tampering, fraud. Evan filed for divorce. He sent me a message saying he was sorry. but he couldn't live with the lies anymore. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my apartment, with its parquet floors and its quiet walls. The landlord, a court-appointed receiver now that Gordon was out, had sent me a formal letter of apology. I received a settlement offer from Gordon's insurance company, $50,000. It was enough to pay off my debts. It was enough to start a savings account. It was enough to breathe. But there was a catch. If I accepted the settlement, I had to agree to cooperate with the prosecution against Melissa. I had to give a deposition. I had to testify. I sat at my table, looking at the offer. My mother had called me every day for a week, leaving voicemails that ranged from begging to screaming, "You are destroying your sister. You are evil." I deleted them without listening. I picked up the pen. I thought about the yellow envelope. I thought about the red light on the key fob. I thought about the cleaning crew lie. I signed the paper. I wasn't doing it for revenge. I wasn't doing it for the money. I was doing it because the truth is the only thing that doesn't rot. I put the settlement in the envelope. I walked to the mailbox. The sun was shining. The air was cold. I dropped the letter in the slot. I was alone. I had no parents, no sister, no family gatherings to go to, but I had my keys. I had my name, and for the first time in my life, I had my own story, and nobody was ever going to edit it again. Thank you so much for listening to My Sister Bribed My Landlord $1,000 to Kick Me Out. It has been a journey walking in Claire's shoes, and I hope her fight for justice resonated with you. I would love to know where you are listening from today. Please drop your city or country in the comments below. It is always amazing to see how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more tales of betrayal, resilience, and sweet revenge, please make sure to subscribe to the Revenge Stories channel. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were Claire? Would you have taken the settlement, or would you have tried to save the family? I can't wait to read your thoughts. Until next time, stay safe and trust your gut.